Welcome to AI at Work. I'm Elijah Sauce. I'm a serial entrepreneur with 28 years of experience in tech, and today I run an agency that builds AI solutions.
Hey, I'm Kevin Williams. I spend most of my time helping companies figure out how to actually use AI. Not in theory, but in the work itself.
We are recording, but I do have this sort of promised land dream of between whisper flow and like a whole bunch of monitors, just being able to kick back and just dictate my day. That is the promised land, because these meat fingers,
I know,
they don't like to type, man.
Are you already annoyed that you actually have to click into the place that you want whisper flow to hear you? Don't you want to just look at the screen and then be able to dictate to that browser tab? That's what I want.
I wish I were joking, but you got some companies who are already working on it. We already know about Neuralink and brain neural interface computers and things like that. And they're all about it being for disabled people and being able to use a mouse. But there's a lot of other stuff that's going on there as far as using the training data, as in mental human processes as training data linked to various senses, which is totally crazy.
Did you see the one, and maybe you know the name of this, but I saw it on a bunch of different social media clips, and I thought it was parody at first. It was two guys sitting in a room and they're having a conversation with each other, and everything was basically being transcribed into an app on their phone, but the other person would basically hear what the other person was thinking, and they're going back and forth. And it's a real startup. They're taking pre-orders and everything. It's so I don't know. A lot of this near future stuff, like the demos I saw of Neuralink with the monkey playing Pong, super impressive. I'm like, cool. But this really connected the dots as to, wow, okay. But the use case, they're like, oh yeah, pretend you're in a really loud environment. You want to talk to your friend. I'm like, I just don't think that's how it's going to be used.
And there's also this whole latency issue, which means you probably are going to have to stick a jack into your head. And it's just straight out of science fiction. And I'm just not ready for that. No.
It was, do you remember that movie Strange Days?
Oh yeah.
You ever see that one? So good, right? So good. Oh my God, it reminds me. I got to play that one for my son. Weird sex scenes. I was got to try to make a note of those. Right? Oh, this was such a cool movie. Oh, geez, not really for an 11-year-old. But you remember, what did they call it? The squid they would put on their head to actually record their thoughts or their memories or fantasies or whatever. That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like on this. It was like this squid on their head. It was very sci-fi. I watched it 3 times just because I was sure it was a joke. And then I read articles about it and wow, I
tell you, we're a big fan of Black Mirror in our house. And there's so
even the latest season?
Even the latest season. The latest season. Okay. We no need to get into some previous seasons that were maybe not so great. Yeah. But some of those episodes are just so prescient. And you could see, given where technology is going, how many of these things could just start happening.
And they're also inherently dark. I've reached an age, Kevin, where I can no longer consume that kind of content right before going to bed because it just gives me bad dreams, restless sleep. I gotta schedule some daytime watching for Black Mirror now. It's dark. It's really dark. Yeah, it's not like
Are we in dark times? I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. Are we on the precipice of dark times? I don't know. I love the AI-generated banter section of our podcast, Kevin. I absolutely love it because some of it is so ridiculous, but some of it I'm like, yeah. And I love just kind of being force-fed whatever it comes up with. And I love this question. It's just a prompt for humans who are into AI. What was the most unexpectedly useful thing you asked AI this week? And what was most ridiculous? I'm sure you're up all night thinking about how to answer that too, right?
I'm going to just punt it back at you.
Okay. I've got one that was unexpectedly useful, and shocking at the same time, where we've spoken before about how I've just become incredibly lazy when it comes to any sort of just drudgery with front-end presentation, layer coding, curly brackets, blah, 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 CSS. So like, hey, GPT, Gemini, whoever, just give me the code and I'm just going to paste this in right here. So I was having one of those moments and I was trying to do this page and then I'm like, I'm not sure exactly what I want this to look like. So I kind of start a conversation in Gemini. And then it just starts going to town, which we're going to talk a bit about Gemini 3, which it does sometimes, but not other times. And it's a little unpredictable, but it starts going to town and it does its little emulator deal and starts compiling this code. And it built a thing. I don't know if you actually got to see the secondary page that I sent to you. There was like this whole lead magnet with a bunch of prompts, but had all these crazy JavaScript elements and dynamic effects and stuff on hover and colors changing and cards flipping over. I mean, it did it so fast and it was so good as just a first prompt. It absolutely blew me away. Like this was production ready, very elegant code, ready to just like paste in, start running. And yeah, that was the most surprising, useful thing. It was something that I had put aside a day of work to do. And it was really difficult for me to look at that and not say, well, I guess I'm done. That's it. I'm just gonna, maybe I'll tweak a little things with the padding here and I'm done. It was shocking. It was really shocking. So that was one for me. That was one for me.
I think we are going to talk more about Gemini, but I had just a shocking week with NotebookLM and using Gemini 3 in
Ooh.
NotebookLM.
Okay.
And I would say that I've heard it phrased this way, or I phrase it this way sometimes with organizations, that AI can amplify you. AI might be able to replace you in some way, shapes, or form, but AI can also create new capabilities that you didn't have before. So those first two is where a lot of people's focus is still, oh, I can amplify myself. And what you just described would be an amplification. Or I could say, hey, I don't really need a graphic designer anymore because I can do a lot of these pieces without a graphic designer. I still need my graphic designer for a lot of reasons. Gabe, you're totally safe. It's all good. But the third part about being able to amplify things is where I think a lot of my thoughts have been this week, in that I tend to be a pretty visual person. And I don't think I really realized that about myself, except I really love a good infographic. And being able to produce an infographic for a client using either Nano Banana or using Notebook is powerful. It's really cool. It can really inform what you're doing. But using an infographic to fill the gaps on something that you're working on, all week long, I've been doing Venn intersections, which how dorky is that? But this is what I'm thinking. This is what the source material is. And what is the Venn intersection between the two? And what's being excluded from that, such that I can figure out really, really quickly what I need to cover as far as whatever the topic is. And these don't have to be pretty. They still take a little while to produce, and they do actually come out to be very pretty. But you can just really rapidly pull in information, synthesize it visually, and that can trigger off whatever the next thing is. And that's a capability I simply didn't have before. And now I do. And my brain is just swimming with the ways that we might be able to use this in terms of client service, in terms of training, all kinds of different things that you just couldn't have done before.
So just to be clear, your prompt, you're pumping in a bunch of data points or ideas or concepts and saying, I want this to be a Venn diagram. And it organizes that all in a way that is visually consumable and it's a clear Venn diagram. That's what you've been doing.
So just an example, we run our AI ambassador training program. It's like this 12-week bells and whistles type program, and it's really awesome, really develops capabilities within bigger companies. And we had this concept of how we were going to look at it going into 2026, and being able to take all of the scripts, all of the pieces, transcripts, etc., add those to NotebookLM, which has just this massive context to it, and then take a transcript of the way that we're conceptualizing it and being able to overlay the two of them so that we could see where are things that we want to do in 2026 that we're actually doing in some way, shape, or form now, so we don't really need to redo those. What are things that we've accidentally left out of the picture? Do we care about those? And what are things that we'll truly have to develop going forward? So those are things that are falling out of the Venn on the other side.
Okay, so you've been using this as an internal tool for yourself, basically. Like this is all internal facing. Like these graphics have become really helpful for you, all these infographics for your team, just to get a nice visual concept of of what would otherwise be just a bunch of messy text all over the place.
So I have to laugh because so my marketing director is super enthusiastic, great guy. I posted one of these documents. He's like, "Oh wow, can we create a 3-panel post in LinkedIn for using that?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!
This
Look
is our
closer.
stuff, buddy.
This
It's
is
our secret
actually
sauce."
showing all the things we don't do well. It just happens to be really pretty. So
Hey, I
how
made a
about
Venn
we don't
diagram of my
post that?"
P&L. Could I put this on?
It wasn't that bad, but still, it was a really attractive graphic that was showing all the things that we don't do particularly well right now.
Okay, cool. I want to dive a little bit into NotebookLM just because you said it 5 times in the last 5 minutes, and I don't think a lot of people even know what it is. I have personally very light use of it. Honestly, we spoke before about how it's usually a better use of your time and your company's time to get really good at one tool set, right? Find one of these LLMs, go deep in it, really explore what it can do. And Gemini 3, that's kind of been my foray into the Google world as far as like a heavy user. And I've jumped into NotebookLM a few times, and it was kind of like that time when OpenAI dropped projects versus custom GPTs, right? And you're at first going like, wait a minute, these kind of feel the same, but they're a little different. What's the use case for one versus another? When I went into NotebookLM, I kind of felt the same, where I was struggling to think, where specifically would this be super helpful? I know it's got a few distinct bells and whistles that the other parts of the product don't have, but maybe start with a description and then talk a little bit about how you use it.
Okay, so NotebookLM made a real splash about a year ago, and it really put Google back on the map. In a lot of ways, everybody had been sort of underrating the Google. Gemini was okay. It wasn't doing anything interesting. And when NotebookLM popped up, the first feature that really went viral was the ability to take a large piece of information. And remember, Gemini still has the biggest context, as in the amount of information that can be put in at once that's out there. So you could take a really large research report on, I don't know, something scintillating like polymer structures or whatever you want, and you could create a podcast that would have a really sycophantic male voice and a sycophantic female voice that would create a 7 to 15-minute podcast that's going through all of the different features. The next addition was the ability for you to interact with that. So you could pause and say, hey, I'd really like to explore more about this polymer structure. Can you tell me? And it's a really powerful feature that I think a lot of people don't know exist. So it'll go on a little bit of a rabbit hole or a divergence, explaining that, and then snap back to its storytelling. The voices are excellent. The inflection is excellent. Everything about it was really good. They realized they had something, and the basic format is in the name. It's a notebook. So it's the ability to take a lot of different sources and pull them in now from your Google Drive if you want. There are some nuances there. You can't just grab a whole folder. You've got to grab individual folders or individual files and add them. And you're essentially creating this context environment. And, I always talk about document chaining and linking together a whole bunch of different sources. So you're in this warm, happy place where you're surrounded by all of your information, like you're deep in a library and you're just surrounded by all the information that you could possibly need. And now they're adding tooling on it. Basic tooling you could accomplish really in Gemini, which is, hey, these are all the documents. Tell me more about all of these documents. But Gemini doesn't really have a great folder or project system yet, which honestly is a user frustration for me, because Anthropic and OpenAI have really good project basis. I'm sure they'll get there,
Right.
but Notebook, I can't pry into the product mind of Google, but I kind of think that that's what it's supposed to be. It is your project where you're putting all of those pieces together. And now they're layering on all of these other cool things that you can start doing with that data. And it can be things like that podcast that I mentioned. It's an audio overview. You can do a video overview of it. And honestly, my teenagers use this sometimes for studying, is being able to take a complicated AP history thing, break it down into like video slides. It's passable. It's really not bad.
Really? What are those video slides? So those are all AI generated video slides? Like it's
Yeah.
doing all of that on the fly?
S- it's pretty cool. It's worth
And like
trying.
VO3 quality video as
No.
far as okay. It's animated stick figures.
I mean, hold your horses, sir. It's
I just haven't used that, so inquiring minds want to know.
I would say that it's more like Schoolhouse Rock animation of
okay.
of like
They're not like live action generative video, but they're animations. That's
it'll get there. At the moment, it's
Okay.
more like animations of slides. So to
Got
be
it.
honest, I haven't run a video overview since Gemini 3 dropped. I want to. Now that's going to be like one of my little things that I'm going to do this afternoon, just because I want to see what it's done. And eventually, I think that's going to get more and more powerful. You can do a mind map of concepts. So if I've built my little library with all of this stuff and there are all of these tendrils that are all over the place, it can construct a mind map for we visual folk. It can create flashcards. I don't really need flashcards, but again, for if I were studying for something, flashcards are great. Can create a quiz based on the information. So here's just a little use. If you're an employee and you're like going in to do a presentation to a client, why not do a quiz to sort of test your knowledge on your own material so that you're better prepared? And then the three that get heavy usage in our organization. One are reports. So these are essentially deep research reports. So again, all the information is there. Let's take a big stab at consolidating all of that information into a report, which, by the way, then is part of the context of your little library, right? But the two that we're just using on autocomplete, basically, are the infographic generator that I was mentioning earlier. And it could be as simple as create an infographic of all of this and help me understand it, or more complicated, like I'm comparing A, B, and C.
That's calling Nano Banana Pro to do that task, correct?
It's calling Nano Banana Pro to do that task, actually, absolutely, but it's doing it right there in NotebookLM. And then the slide decks are just out of this world. I mean, I'm having a moment with these slide decks where my jaw is just hitting the floor, that you and I present all the time.
Yeah.
You have more of a sense of style and art than I do. I just loathe doing decks, and I feel like
I think everybody loves doing decks, buddy, just to be fair. Just because one person's better at it, it doesn't mean that it isn't awful. It is awful.
It's a huge unlock to be able to put together a prompt of a bunch of information. So one of my go-to keynotes is navigating the AI supercycle. And I've given this, it's like everything in AI, it evolves every 5 minutes, but I've probably given it 40 times. And I'm always tweaking the deck in this way or that way to accommodate new information. And it's always kind of janky. It's fine. I think I'm a decent speaker, so it goes. But I basically just put the deck in there and said, make it pretty. And I just couldn't believe the outputs. That this does not look a bit like Gamma or like an output from a slide developer in Microsoft Copilot. This is a beautiful, rich, fully graphic deck that's 30 pages long with charts and graphics and images and nice art style, etc.
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit. First of all, are you breaking up with Gamma? Is that what you're telling me right now?
Sorry, Gamma. We were BFFs for a long time.
Somebody just lose $29.95 a month.
This is bad for Gamma. There's another topic here we're probably not going to get to today, but stealthily, Microsoft Copilot got really good in the last few weeks.
I saw that too.
So between, we should probably talk about that next week, but between Microsoft finally figuring out which end is up, and being able to do development in PowerPoint and solutions like slide decks through Notebook, I think Gamma has a real problem because it's a different approach to design. And I know you're going to beat me up over this because it's not as flexible as Gamma in a lot of ways, but it's so dang good that
it's so good out of the box that you're like,
it's worth the friction. It's worth the friction to fix. And
okay,
I think
couple questions for you. A couple questions for you on this. I want to unpack this one before we kind of go on to the broader Gemini 3 stuff. Okay, so first of all, with these slide decks, I remember one of the first complaints being that your output's your output, right? Oh, it's beautiful, but it's just not quite exactly what I need. And this slide has to change, or this is just the wrong headline on this one. But guess what are you going to just try to get the whole thing out again? And we all know what these LMs do in those cases is it gives you something just a little bit different, right? And then you're kind of off the rails. But then I saw a little button last time I tried this that says, send this all to Google Slides. So is that what you're doing? Are you basically pushing this all to Google Slides and then you can edit it later?
For
have
whatever,
you tried that? Have you tried doing that?
For whatever reason, that's not working for my setup. This stuff is changing really rapidly.
Really fast.
Yeah. Really
That's why
fast.
I'm asking these questions, because I'll hear something, try it, have a completely different experience, and then, oh yeah, this is rolled out this week.
So what you're describing should totally work. Gemini is remarkable at text. Being able to create a hyper dense infographic, or a slide presentation that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of words. I have yet to see a misspelling. I've seen a couple of little like artifacts or whatever, but that is identifiable language, right? So if you can identify it as text, then once you get it into Google Slides, you should be able to edit it as well.
Right.
But even so, even if you can't edit it, I totally imagine that in another 5 internet minutes, you're just going to have a little button next to a slide and it's going to say reprompt, and you're going to say, hey, take that picture of the flying pig out of there, or whatever it is.
A little more granular as far
just a little bit more granular on a single
yeah.
slide.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally obvious, but all I'm doing is I'm taking the slide as an individual file and I'm dumping it into Gemini in Nano Banana, and I'm saying, hey, you need to fix this one thing. And then I dump it back in the PowerPoint or not the PowerPoint, but the PDF, because it's going to output it as a PDF on the other side. And it's a little janky. And what's really funny here, do you know what the hedonistic treadmill is?
Yes.
Okay. So, So the hedonistic treadmill is just this idea that it's generally tied to income and expenses, and you just keep on this treadmill as you increment up your income. But the hedonistic treadmill is applied to AI, I think is really, really interesting, in that we're all becoming so accustomed to the magic just being magic and magicking that people get really frustrated when it's not great right out of the box. And I had this really funny exchange with a friend over the weekend who I was enculturating into the way of NotebookLM, and it was just driving him absolutely ballistic that it was coming out with a watermark, which it does. And we can include in the notes, somebody has hacked together a little watermark removal tool already. And apparently if you pull from the API, you don't have the watermark. Frankly, being that I'm an AI guy, I don't care. I think it's pretty cool that it says notebook down there, and I'll point to it as, wow, isn't this an amazing deck that AI basically created for me? But I get it. If you're selling,
send it to a client and charge $40,000 for it. Maybe
it's still about the intellectual property, man. In any case, he was just losing his mind over like not being able to get rid of that stupid watermark. And I was like, okay, you just got the most beautiful deck you've ever seen. It took 5 minutes to produce a deck that you would have had to spend 2 days with an actual graphic designer to produce previously. So you simply wouldn't have, or you would have spent 3 hours building whatever the hand deck was, and you probably wouldn't have been satisfied with it. Yes, you do have to copy and paste some images over to Gemini to make some small changes, but it's not the end of the world. Like, you're still getting this beautiful deck in 20 minutes.
Yeah, it just saved you, no exaggeration, like 20 hours of your life, probably, to really fine tune a good deck.
I mean, I'll argue, I'll push, because if you weren't doing it before, this is a new capability. You're getting better decks than you were before, but I was never going to spend 25 hours on
pre-AI. Let's go pre-AI for a minute and remember struggling through awful like 40 slide PowerPoint presentations or Keynote or whatever you used. Now I've been using Canva just because, again, they have all these libraries of assets I don't have to get from different places now. Like, everything's just under one roof, right? But pre-AI, you've seen some of my decks. Like, I do get a little OCD over just the aesthetics and design quality and everything. It takes a long time. And if I can get 80% as good with something like this, sign me up. So is this free for everybody, or is this only on paid plans?
It's free to a degree. I have not because I have
used it once, and then it says you should upgrade your other.
Yeah, probably. I haven't tried it on a free account.
The paid plan, ironically.
I I was so like click happy on it over the weekend. So I have 4 different paid Gemini accounts that I can get access to, and I tapped out all 4 of them.
You have 4 paid accounts just because you do run out your tokens on the paid account, and then so you just
No,
jump to the next?
there are various reasons with like
Okay.
it is
Money
other
laundering or
companies that I'm
something, yeah.
involved in, and you have Gemini as the workspace add-in and whatever. But I was also using a free one, and I tapped that one out, I guess, faster. So just a caution. And this has been my caution about Claude, who I love Claude. I love writing with Claude. It's wonderful, right? But you can't depend on it as a workflow partner if the dang thing runs out of juice in
It runs out
mid-stride.
quick.
It's
Claude, I feel
just
like
this,
runs out so quick.
it's super frustrating. And the
Yeah.
same can be true with NotebookLM. You will tap it out. I mean, if knowing what I know about the variable costs involved in this, like
Right.
this is insanely expensive.
You're
for
saying you'll
Google
tap it out on a
Gemini.
paid plan, on like the
You'll
20
tape
bucks
it
a
out
month
on
or
a
whatever
paid
you're saying
plan,
now.
but it's not
Okay.
immediate. I mean, you'll be
Okay.
able to put out a few decks. It's also not instant. So people also are frustrated that you can't just click and immediately have a 40-page
Yeah.
perfect deck. It can take 10, 15 minutes to run a deck because it's running each of the slides. It's going to Nano Banana. It's
10 to
doing a
15
prompt.
minutes.
Yeah, it can take
Okay.
that long.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime in
A
AI
lifetime,
right now. It's a
totally.
lifetime. For like how many slides? And does it depend on the data that you're feeding it as far as like, I want a beautiful graphic on everyone?
So I don't get that granular. I'm generally
Okay.
like, give me a pretty deck that's
Okay. Okay. Unpack this workflow real quick. So you're doing this through LM. Is there any reason why you can't just do this through the regular Gemini prompt?
I don't know. I haven't tried whether or not you can output multiple PDFs in a series in the Gemini prompt. So if you wanted to do just an infographic, it's totally fine. You
If you
can
want to do an
put all-
infographic, you just go right to Nano Banana.
Yeah, but once you're used to working in the LM project, it's pretty nice to be in the project because you don't have to recontextualize it. You can just sort of walk into that library or that bookstore and like be working with it right away. So I like working within it.
Okay.
But I do find if I'm doing something that doesn't need that construct around it, I'm just going to do something quick, like, hey, compare this document and this document, give me an infographic. Yeah, I'll just go to the Gemini chat, enable Nano Banana, and move on with my day.
Okay. And so what would be the reason? Is it having cross context to all the different chats inside of that LM project that would make you do this, as opposed to just creating a gem, attaching a bunch of files, and then having all of that context there in that gem? And this is, this is kind of like going back to that, how do we really tease these things apart? Because yeah, the Google ecosystem it's a little convoluted. It's a little difficult to know where to go and what to use different things for.
It's funny. One of the first things I did was develop an infographic to try and explain the Google ecosystem.
Explain Gemini.
Gemini.
Would you please create me a Venn diagram of Gemini? Because actually, it's just for me. I don't understand it. I'm not going to put this on LinkedIn because it's embarrassing.
No, it's like Opal and like some of these other things. Like I actually built a flow chart of when I'm supposed to use what Google tool and for what. I mean, those people need to be smacked. Like it's just ridiculous how much horsepower has just been spent in producing all of these nuggets of value, and then they just sort of throw them out in the yard, and they're like, "Hey,
it," and I don't know where to go.
There's some cool stuff out there. Pick around, look around.
Yeah.
So answering your question, I think the difference is the media output that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a more rich media environment that's baked into the environment, there's nothing like NotebookLM. So a gem, yeah, you can take all of the information. You can ask it for an infographic. If that's suit to purpose, then great. But
could I also ask it for a presentation? Like if I fed it, say I've got like 10 documents attached, I've been updating it. This is okay. I've got this project. It lives as a gem. I've been talking to this gem to get answers about this project. Could I then go in and say, make me a 20-page slide deck that really encompasses everything that I've been feeding into this?
I don't think so. Not at this moment. I could be wrong. I haven't tried it. Frankly, internally, We're an OpenAI shop, so almost all of our
Yep.
workflows are in OpenAI. I use Claude personally, and we use Claude for advanced sort of finalization on human voice type things and
Right.
insights. And we're really just starting to experiment from a workflow perspective with Gemini. But that same person that I said was getting frustrated with the rapid output, he's just really getting going. And I said, hey, if I could start from zero and OpenAI didn't have this big advantage of having 3 years and like 20,000 chats I have in there in
Yep.
terms of having a reasonable idea of who I am. That's really valuable. That's
Yeah.
something that shouldn't be overlooked as far as what GPT is bringing to the table. I'm starting kind of just tabula rasa with Gemini, and that's hard because the information isn't there yet. But I told him, since you are starting from near zero, 100%, I would go into Gemini because
Really?
it's less expensive.
That's a
It's
bold statement, buddy.
if I don't have a problem with it. There are a
No, no, no.
few features that
I'm
I'd
all
be
ears, man.
missing.
I've been thinking about this a lot for the last couple of weeks that I haven't seen you. Yeah.
So this this could be for the audience. Here you are. You're playing around with GPT personally. You're playing around with Claude, and you're getting some mileage out of it, and you kind of get how it works. But you're looking at the costs of bringing GPT teams. They call it business now into your organization. It's $30 a seat. It offers shareability and some other things. I don't know. Gemini, I think, depends on your plan, but it's somewhere
Right.
between $7 and $15 a seat, depending on how big you are. And yeah, that adds up. And there
Yeah.
are complexities that we've talked about before, as far as everybody needing it versus some people needing it, and et cetera.
Right.
But it's already linked to all of your files.
Yeah.
And there's so much productivity that's baked into it. Just 2 weeks ago, we were fanboying out on N8N as a workflow builder.
Yeah.
But now Google is just quietly launched this workspace builder that's designed to out N8N on Google-based featers. So if you're already
Okay.
living in the environment,
Don't start on that because I want to talk about that too. Like this is what happens when we don't catch up for a while, man. Just okay. I want to wrap. I want to put a bow on this presentation capability of NotebookLM. Would you walk me through basic use case of how you would set this up, the context you would give it, the prompt you would give it, and then the output that you have based on that? You already said this thing comes out as a PDF, and then I've got to, whatever. I've got to edit it. I've got to get it into another ecosystem. Maybe that's PowerPoint. But how are you setting that up to get a presentation that's like blowing your socks off?
okay, context matters. Prompting matters. Like, we can't forget that. And people who are new to using these tools are still forgetting that you can't just walk in and be like, give me something pretty. And you kind of can, but if you want something that's good, the first thing you have to do is build context. So something real workflow that's sitting on another monitor over here is I'm doing some pretty advanced work on AI in commerce, not just e-commerce, but like booking engines and whatever. And this is going to be a presentation tomorrow. And I've spent probably a week doing background research, deep research, original sourcing, interviews, transcripts, etc., to develop my picture of what this means. And one of the cool things about doing what we do is it's all new, right? That
Right.
you can't just go find somebody who has interesting things to say about AEO or GEO and like roll with it. They're
Right.
making it
Everybody's a
up
pioneer
because
here.
it's
Yeah.
new, right? So you have to, you really do. I'm not abdicating here. Spent a lot of time building that set of documents. Okay. So now I have that. So now I'm going to go over to, and I may actually be using Notebook. You can do research right in Notebook, but
Oh, you can do deep research right from Notebook.
you
Okay.
can research topics. I find that gets a little kludgy just in the interface for various reasons. So I tend to do deep research in GPT. Again, that's just my habit.
Spread out those tokens, baby.
Well, so
That
I
too.
get my pieces, I then synthesize them, and then I waltz over to NotebookLM. I just click, hey, I want a new notebook, and then I'm adding those sources. And I'm adding those sources either as an upload or just connecting to the files on my Google Drive. So now
Okay.
it's built like it's
Are you just
wall
uploading
around
like
me.
a flat PDF or
Yeah.
Word? I think you still use like some of the Microsoft stuff, right? Like a Word doc or
I do. I'm
You can
trapped like between universes that because of clients, sometimes we're in Word, sometimes we're in Google. It makes me die
very
inside.
corporate, very corporate. Lots of team stuff. Yeah, yeah,
It's painful. Although
yeah.
Microsoft, next week, Microsoft, we got to
Next
talk
week,
about it.
Microsoft. Okay,
Anyway.
so you make 30 Word documents. You then upload those to your NotebookLM project.
Okay, so I forget exactly what the limit is and the size. I don't have it handy. It may be 20 is what it is what I'm thinking, but they can be pretty large because Gemini does have a million token context, so it can
Right.
take all of that information in, and then it basically chews on it and it says, "Hey, this is what I'm seeing." And really, in the right bar, you have something called Studio, and you can then choose what sort of media output you want from it. And I really do think it is from a briefing perspective. You're like flying to a client site, and you've put together all of the background materials, and you don't really feel like reading it. You could do a report on it, or you could do the audio overview and listen to the podcast. I'm not quite as auditory as I am visual, so that
Are
one
you
doesn't fly with me.
in that instance? Are you talking to it? Are you basically having a voice conversation
You
with the
could,
document?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can interrupt it. Generally, it's just mode is to have the two little podcast hosts just talk to each other,
Right.
but
Which
you
is
can.
super impressive if nobody's seen that. I mean, it is pretty amazing.
It's old hat. If you haven't
It's old
seen
hat, but
that, come
it's
on.
still like
I want
it's such a
2024 back.
it's such a compelling way to consume content though, right? Like, I mean, it's almost like our brains are wired for this to pick up on conversation, and it just makes it more digestible, in my opinion. I
What
really think
you're
it
saying
does.
that our brains aren't wired to just use our fingers with an electronic interface?
Or
That's
to
something along the lines of talking to each other is the way we're
staring at a
wired?
box of lights and just consuming like hundreds of lines of text at a time and drooling all over yourself. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. Yeah, listening to two people talk about a subject, I think is what makes podcasts so cool. And to be able to just generate that, yeah, old hat, still amazing. Like really, really
Still
cool.
amazing.
Still
So,
amazing. Yeah.
and then you just click create a slideshow or create, I'm sorry, this is important. There's a
Okay.
little prompt next to the items. So previously you just click on make a slideshow and it would do its best. Now you can prompt it, create a sales oriented deck using X, Y, and Z from the outputs. And you can do a pretty robust one. So in our case, and your case too, you have a brand style guide. You want to
Yeah.
add the brand style guide, so it's using your colors and fonts and things like that. So your prompt all includes all of that, and that's the sort of thing that I generally advise that people just kind of keep on a swipe file somewhere, so you can grab it. That's the go-to material.
Right.
I don't like serif
Could you just
fonts.
use one of those connections for that file, for example? Like if you had all of that in your Google Drive,
Yeah.
could you just call on that and then you're telling it to call on that for
Yep.
based on that project
But you
output
do need
want?
to tell it that. Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, it loves to mangle logos in particular. I would say
Noticed.
that is my probably my biggest struggle with it, and the biggest reason I have to rerun it is it will mangle either my logo or the client logo,
Okay.
and you can't do that.
When you say rerun it, you're not talking about a slide. You're having to rerun the entire deck so that it gets the logo right because it probably appears in many places on the deck, right?
I've started to just include the logo on the first page, just
Okay.
because if you're trying, it's a kind of a big ask to say take this file and make sure this file appears in the same way on
And make it
every
consistent.
page. If you have 20 pages in your deck, you basically have 20 at bats for that to go wrong, and it's going to go wrong somewhere in there. And these will
Okay.
get better. This is reference image technology is what it's doing, but that stuff is a little bit fast and loose still.
Yeah, yeah. So this is interesting because I saw a demo when Gemini 3 got released of somebody building out this presentation that just looked incredible, and they were just doing it right from the good old vanilla prompt that everybody uses. You've been singing the praises of Gamma for a very long time. I've struggled with it a little bit to get it exactly where I want it. I'm like, oh, maybe this is the holy grail I've been looking for. And it just mangled it. I mean, it shit the bed. I got nothing useful. It was producing just like empty slides, plain text. I gave it my style guide. So it sounds like possibly the real unlock to use this feature is you do have to go through the route of using LM to be able to produce this stuff because, and again, we can also talk about regression with some of these models, namely Gemini 3, and how an experience you have may not come close to matching that experience the subsequent week, right? Like it changes. But in your experience, like the unlock for this and your reason for saving your $30 a month or however much you were spending on Gamma, is going through the LM window to do all this. Like this is how you're putting these decks together.
So different purposes. You
Okay.
won't see me unsubscribe from Gamma anytime soon because we use Gamma extensively. This is in that new capability realm
Right.
for client updates, internal updates, briefing documents, etc. Because it puts out something that's clear, easy to read, branded, and it might involve a bunch of purples and grays because that's sort of the way it rolls. But it's
Right.
fine. It's fine for suit to purpose for a quick briefing versus a super dense email.
Okay.
It's great. We probably produce 15, 20 gammas a day.
Wow.
And there's just no way, and they're almost instant. They take like 2 minutes to run a 20-page gamma versus 15 minutes to run a presentation deck. But
Okay.
that's different, right? A presentation deck is for presenting. So
Right.
you should be spending more time on it.
Why couldn't you use LM's presentation capabilities to just do like an update slide? Like, if you prompted it to do that, would it still like rip through 15 minutes of, oh, here's 50 Venn diagrams? I know you didn't want this, but cool. Is
No,
that what it
it
would do?
could. One, it would take long, and
Okay.
two, until that connection to Google Slides actually works every single time, that's going to be a problem. When that works, then
Because you
yes,
can't edit.
because I at least in my setup at this moment, I can't edit. That will totally change. It's too obvious, and you'll be able to export it to Google Slides. At least first, you'll just be able to edit, move it, and then you should be able to start working with it. At that point, yeah, Gamma's probably in trouble for me.
Right.
But Gamma's raised a couple $100 million.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
actually,
just heard an interview with the founders and yeah, pretty impressive.
yeah, it is, but it's not that sticky. I'm already paying for
Yeah,
Google. So it's
I
like,
know.
it's also just, it is one of those that's on my list that we are power users of it. And I think we pay like $15 a month. It's like
Oh, wow. Okay.
completely stupid cheap. Not saying Gamma, you should raise our prices because if you do, I'm just going to go to Gemini anyway.
Just for you. Look at your inbox,
So,
Kevin. Like everybody's listening. Yeah.
but at which point I'm going to go to Gemini, right? So
Yeah.
it's a delicate balance for these. I wouldn't have called Gamma a wrapper before because it was going beyond. So to remind people, a wrapper is basically just a user experience that sits on top of a large language model and
For
does
special use
something.
case.
Yeah, a special use
Yeah.
case. And this goes beyond it because there's a lot of design technology that they've built, and it's legitimate like development that they've built. But it is at risk because now you have this capability creep that's happened through the LLMs, and you could totally see how it's going to just gobble up everything near space to it. I mean, why wouldn't it? I mean, I'm not a huge Google fanboy in terms of workspace. I think there are a lot of annoyances in it.
For sure.
But if stuff just starts working in there to this quality, why I don't need any more complexity in my life. And my experiments with PowerPoint, it's getting way better too. It has nothing on what Gemini can put out right now, but
Yeah.
it'll totally get there too.
Yeah.
And where does that leave another platform, another dollar? And honestly, I am a Canva fanboy. I think it's great.
Okay.
But Canva has a similar problem because as these features get baked right into platforms that people are using every single day,
Yeah.
it's going to become a problem for them.
I totally agree. And as the generative capabilities of bringing these other assets into your decks gets better and better, again, yeah, Canva will also be in hot water. I mean, Gamma's probably really kind of looking outward thinking, oh boy, what else
Somebody
can we
buy
add to
me.
this product?
Somebody buy me
Yeah.
is what they're probably, and somebody will probably snap them up
Yeah.
because they've done that other lift and they have the brand and whatnot. But this isn't a business podcast so much, but consolidation is almost certainly happening as the zeros keep adding up behind the
Right.
investments that are needed to do this. Certain people are doing interesting things. And I mean, Microsoft is lagging behind. So if they bought Gamma and then were able to apply what they were already doing in PowerPoint and like
Right.
subsume the whole thing, yeah, it would work out pretty well for we the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So so you've got all of this context in your Notebook LM project to make your presentation. When I caught something you said about your prompt being kind of lightweight, right? That you kind of, and this is something I've noticed, that sometimes the more context I give it, the outcome actually gets worse. Like I almost send it down this narrow path instead of letting it do its thing and generate something where maybe I'm even a little delighted, or like what I told you about that landing page I created, where I was like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. And I started with a very lightweight prompt. Is that true? Are you kind of holding back a little bit when you then give it that prompt to create the deck, or are you getting deep in the weeds? Are you doing that prompt in GPT instead and then taking that output over and using it? How have you found the best results so far when you're going through that work?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of use an iceberg analogy here because, yes, the tip of the iceberg is the prompt, but I've done a very good job, I promise you, of building the rest of the iceberg in terms of the content that it's referencing.
All the
Uh,
attachments that we talked
all
about.
of the attachments and things like that. And I've probably done some additional work in Notebook synthesizing it. I may have done an outline for the slide deck, something like that.
Okay.
And once I've done that outline and it's there, I may have done it in GPT. I may have done it right in Notebook. And part of that would be duplicated effort, by the way. It's just because some of my workflows are over, and most of my workflows are over in OpenAI, so the documents already
Right.
live over there. So to get it in Notebook, I'm actually having to
As like
duplicate
a
some
custom
work.
GPT, you mean?
Yeah, well, no, 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 no,
Okay.
no. I do a
Wow.
project. I would never build a custom GPT for that sort of
No, when
thing.
you said they live in the OpenAI ecosystem, like what do you mean by that?
I mean, they live as
It
far
lives
as
over
a
there.
project.
Oh, gotcha.
So
As a
we
project
have
in
probably 100 projects.
GPT. Okay.
And projects for every client, project, et cetera. And that's that context grouping that allows you to work within it. So if I go over
Right.
to Gemini, I'm having to rebuild that to a degree, which I find a little bit
Right.
annoying. So I'm pretty regimented about storing context documents. So on our Google Drive, we have all these folders called context documents. And it's like you have a project that has context documents to it. And that allows me to very rapidly move between platforms if I feel that I need to. If I'm not getting what I need to out of GPT, I want better output writing, I might
Right.
recontextualize
Okay.
in Claude instead. But yeah, so the prompt might be sort of glib, but it's referencing a bunch of work that's been done.
Gotcha.
And I do find that at least
Make me
it depends
something
on the output.
beautiful, Notebook LM. Just make me something beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you can like, yeah, just
Look at all these
and
files and just you create.
I tell you, some of the best results that I have come from that. And I'll
I
just
know.
like look at the output to sort of mouth agape, like,
Yeah.
really? I
Wow.
never would have come
Like
up. It
I
comes up
couldn't have
with an
imagined the thing I would have used as a prompt to get this result, basically.
exactly. And if you
Yeah.
try and dictate it, I mean, it's like the early days of like Midjourney, which for those
Right.
that don't know is still a very powerful image generating tool. It's incredibly wonky, and photographers and designers who are technical in nature gravitated to it because you could set like image f-stops for like a camera and things like that, and you get super wonky about it. So if you want to use like color hex codes and whatnot and really dictate the output, yeah, you can totally do that. But
Yeah.
letting it run and then kind of learning from the experience, I've been just knocked on my heels when I've seen what it's come up with, because I touched on it a second ago, but it also seems to have a good grasp of narrative flow. So it knows what good presentation is, that there's, setting up of the facts, there's telling people what they want to tell, then you've got the
So cool.
hero's journey kind of through the middle of it, and then towards the end is the questions and whatever it goes into. It just sort of naturally does that stuff. And my problem is I'll do like 15, 20 slides and I'll like 8 of them. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I've got some ideas. Now I need to reconstruct this outline, but I really like those 8. So now
Okay.
I'm using I'm like taking those 8 slides and putting them in as a source and saying, do this again, but with all the rest of this information too.
Okay.
And now you're back in LLM roulette land. So you're going to
Right,
get something
right.
different.
That's what I was gonna ask you. I mean, because are you going through this process looking for one complete usable output that you may have to just fix like a couple little things, but for the most part, it's all good? Are you going back and reprompting, like going through those cycles in order to get that? And the follow-up question on that is, are you providing it a style guide? Are you looking for that kind of continuity between your presentations? And does it do a good job with that continuity if you give it the right context?
I'm not that precious in general.
Okay, you don't
I
care.
mean, the most I'm going to go
You're like,
is
yesterday our brand colors are blue and purple. Today they're green and yellow, guys.
no, no. I mean, I'll say here's the style guide. Use the colors.
Poppins today, Helvetica tomorrow.
Although the presentation I'm looking at. Okay, so I mean, real case. This is it's a 22-page slide deck about this wonky AI and commerce stuff,
Right.
and yeah, it came out with like Times New Roman and these serif fonts, and it doesn't have my brand in it, and etc.
Did
But
you
I
tell it to do that though?
no, I didn't. In
Okay.
that case, I just put it out, but I
Okay.
really like it.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it. There are 3 slides I had to fix because there was just some weird artifacts in it. And the first slide, I needed my logo in it. So it took me, I don't know, 10 minutes to replace those 3 slides and put them in, and I'm going to call it good. And now I get to focus on what I'm really good at, which is the presenting and the synthesis of the information and the discussion. I'm just not precious about it in that way, but I'm also not a graphic designer.
Right.
And, different applications. If I were presenting for some enterprise, some public company, you bet it's going to be branded with their colors and it's going to be using their font and, et cetera, that's
Right.
in there. But I'm going to be able to use this deck tomorrow, and I'm probably never going to be able to use it again because it's going to be obsolete in 2 weeks. So, it's good. Move on. It's pretty.
Okay. So, I mean, that's just an interesting point because there are decks that you use over and over and over again, right? That is part of your business. You are in you are in the literacy and training and regulatory space, and there are things that are part of a whole package, for example, right? Like if you do stand up an ambassador program, it might have like a dozen different decks that you will either take people through or you're going to give people to consume. And you probably do want continuity across all of those. So are you saying in those cases to produce those assets, like this may not be the right horse for the right course?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely
Okay.
not. You would
Okay.
absolutely, I don't see any reason why, if I wanted to fully redevelop my ambassador program in 2026,
Which you will.
which I will, which I'll have to.
Because here we are.
There we are. But that's
Everything's new
okay.
again.
It's actually, I'm sort of salivating about it because I firmly believe that I'm going to be able to standardize how that works because there's plenty of room in it, even though it's a 12-week program. So it has courses and then it has lectures. And what we're doing right now, we actually were deploying it in lectures last Tuesday. And I redid some of the lecture decks because I wanted to make them pretty. So now that I've started that process, now I'm going to redo all of the lecture decks. I have to do that every couple of months anyway. So as I update them, now they're going to be more consistent than they were before, more attractive than they were before. And frankly, if I wanted, so we do these programs for bespoke, for big companies. And if I wanted to then take the lecture and make it branded to the client, it wouldn't be a big lift for me to do that either. So I'm actually not worried about that at all. Once the
Okay.
style is established, it should stick.
Okay. And so say you did want to brand it for a client as an example, right? And you talked about how just the consistency of certain branding elements or logos, not always really hitting it on the target. So is that something that you would just sidestep in that whole prompt production and then take it in post and then brand for the client in another tool like PowerPoint or Keynote or something or Canva? Or would you attempt to do that And I'm really asking out of curiosity if you have done that or if this is also new, like that use case hasn't really come up yet.
I would say I'd recalibrate on expectations, and I would likely just have my logo on the front page and move on with
Okay.
my day.
I mean,
But
because okay, so when you say branded for a client, for example, like, okay, here's the client's branding on this slide. Now we're just
on
gonna
the
kind of
first
go
slide,
into
and
like
then
the pretty stuff that it makes.
the client's colors are red and gold or whatever,
Right.
and then yeah, okay, rerun it with their style guide, but I might have to do some tweaking on the front page. But this is not an important part of what we do. Like the prettiness of the slide is tertiary to the content of the slide and the
And the
discussion that
storytelling,
the
right? The
slide and the
arc of the
storytelling.
presentation. Yeah.
So and my slide, just being able to use this, my slides have been amplified so much. I'm like giddy about it for sure, but this doesn't change my world. Like, I'm not,
Right.
it makes my world better.
Doesn't change
But
your world, it just changes the number of hours you have in it.
yeah,
I mean,
although
it does, right?
I
Like
mean,
you
we did
spent less
talk.
time on this, right?
We talked, well, maybe not. Maybe good enough
Okay.
was good enough previously, but now I know what better looks like.
Oh,
So I'm finding myself,
hedonistic treadmill.
a little bit, yeah, that I'm finding myself maybe spending more time prettying up some stuff that I just would have called good previously. And I think that's just, there's also a learning curve and experimentation. And this stuff is fun for me as I build it into workflows. But yeah, if your business is predicated on client-oriented, brand-specific outputs, yeah, you're going to have to figure out some workflows that make sure that's done. Yeah, you might be using Post for a little while until these connections work. But
Right.
having somebody on your team go through and add a watermark or a logo mark to each page in a PDF is like 5 minutes of work. Um, so it's no big deal. It's not something I'm going to stress over.
Okay, you glossed over something. This is all we're going to talk about, by the way, because this is what we
It
do.
sounds
We
very
just
practical. It
yeah, we
sounds
just like
like AI at
we dig
work.
into one topic and then we just can't let go of it, like a pit bull on somebody's pant leg. Okay, you glossed over something I thought was actually really important. I thought I was the only nerd who did this, and turns out there's two nerds at least who do this. When you were talking about all of those reference files, like all of that context, and you're like, I'm in the ecosystem, and that's one hard thing about going over to Gemini and using some of these tools is now I've got to like bring all this context over. And you casually said, oh, I've got, this set of files to kind of serve as this is my little wiki of context, right? This is how I have all of this stuff organized and I can then pick and choose what I want to bring over to different models. I did that the first time that I think somebody on my team, I don't know how this happened. It was like very early days of the custom GPTs. Something got deleted. And then I was trying to get the file out of it. And I'm like, oh, once you attach that file, it kind of goes into a black box. You can't really get to that file or download it again. So having a place while this whole Wild West of AI unfolds in front of us, that you're still old school in regards to this is my set of files. This lives in Dropbox or my Google Drive or whatever you use. And there is a little bit of matchmaking there, which we can automate. We talked about that on another episode. But having all of that reference material and being able to bring that over into these different ecosystems is still super important, right? There's kind of like all these old school file management elements that still come into play, even though we're being shown these amazing new tools every single day.
Look, I don't think you're going to be able to be sloppy about this ever. And the reason why, if you're in a big company, you're in a Microsoft and SharePoint environment. And what connotes that is rights. So, in a small organization where there's a high level of trust, giving everybody rights to everything
Right.
still probably isn't a good idea, right? In a large organization, when HR is allowed to see stuff in finance, but finance isn't allowed to see stuff in HR and et cetera, and there are all of these document rights issues, it becomes really, really complicated. So making sure that as part of your workflow, you're creating your little hamster nest of information that allows you to use it in a bunch of different ways. I mean, respecting rights in the organization, obviously. You're
Right.
not going to like gank stuff you're not supposed to use, but
Right.
keeping it in one place, it's just good hygiene. And as you pointed out, once it's in the black box, it can be hard to pull out.
Yeah.
So developing just some minor workflows. This isn't a big deal. It's a matter of hey, this is a really interesting document. I want to move it over to Drive such that if I ever want to reference this again, or if somebody on my team wants to reference it and I don't really want to give them access to the chat that I'm
Exactly.
using, I can just point them to the folder and be like, start here, contextualize, build your
Yep.
bookstore, go
Here's
on from
5
there.
links to 5 documents in different folders, like, build your project from this. It really comes down to that source of truth, right? Like, having that source of truth in your organization and having that be part of your SOPs, part of how you handle regulatory inside of your company for use of these tools, like, all of this stuff is so important.
Yeah. And we get asked all the time to do like document-based chatbots, and you run into these rights and access issues where certain people can see some things and certain people can't see other things. And I do see there's like Google in particular will be, I think, cross my fingers, but I think that this is going to be, it's going to be a little bit easier to use because Google Drive has been around for a long time.
Right.
Like I think it's going to be easier to add like, okay, new client, this is the folder. New client topic is AI in e-commerce. Okay,
Right.
now we're going to add this folder, which is a repository of everything we know about AI and commerce right now. And then we're going to link up our transcript workflow such that every time we have a client call or a team call about it, the transcript routes automatically to the right folder. And now, wow, have you ever created a really cool, I'm going to use the term hamster nest again, of just
Love the
information
hamsters, yeah.
that you can pull from in your notebook, or you can pull from your
Right.
gem, or you can pull from these other places? That's super cool.
Well, to put a ribbon on this one, all right, because you also brought this up and it just kind of flew by, but it's something that I've bumped into as well. When we talked about how you have all of these different Google accounts, right? Like you're like, oh, I kind of ran out here, I'll jump over here. So when you're calling these tools, when you're calling your Google Drive or you're calling a bunch of documents or whatever you might have in your Google business environment, that is tied to an account. That's an account, right? I can't jump over. I can't have like my personal Gmail account and have a gem in there and then all of a sudden just kind of call my business Google Drive account. It's got to be under those same SSO log creds that Google is using, correct?
Sort of correct.
Sort of correct. How is it not correct? Let's
If you
start
have
there.
open sharing in folders, and a folder is shared with the organization, again, not deep into rebuilding our business around Google yet, but my
Right.
observation is, and in fact, this is the case with our transcript mover rater thing that moves transcripts around in the organization, which I'm super proud of because it's
Okay.
awesome. But it actually lives on like a Gmail account that I set up as a special purpose Gmail account. Why the
Okay.
heck did I do that? I did that because there is an SSO or an OAuth connection
Right.
from N8N
Right.
into that account. And I don't particularly want just my whole staff having access to that OAuth credential. So I instead establish a credential that's on that Gmail account. And then I share the folder that I care less about, the transcripts, with my main account, and it will
Okay.
be able to get access to it to be able to pull them. And if somebody, I love my team, but if for some reason, like their laptop got stolen or something like that,
Right.
all they'd be able to get into is this folder from this dummy Gmail account that has a bunch of transcripts. And it's not like we're
Right.
talking about credit card numbers or
Not the one with all
HIPAA or anything.
your dirty little secrets, like not that
Yes,
account.
my dirty little secrets.
Not the triple encrypted one. Yeah.
But to answer
Yeah.
your question, yeah, I mean, there
Yeah.
are ways to
There's some
skirt around
workarounds
it.
basically.
It's just like workarounds.
Yeah.
We're still at a workaround and duct tape stage of a lot
Yeah.
of this, but you do want to be mindful of security for sure. You don't want to just accidentally do things that expose data to people who shouldn't have the data in your enthusiasm to be able to open up these other things. So
Right.
it is pretty siloed, and this is not an unknown thing for enterprise risk people and whatnot. So it's why
Right.
Microsoft's moving so slow, and why Gemini and Google has been moving so slow. But this will just end up being pretty baked into it, in that
Right.
we were talking earlier about just dictation. Like I watched the Iron Man series. We binged it with over Thanksgiving with my 14-year-old, and just watching Tony Stark talk to Jarvis, and you can
Yeah.
hear it now. Hey Jarvis, open up this project that does this and this, and what I really want you to do is do an analysis of this, this, and this, and I can see it. I can totally see it. It's not going to
Yeah.
be next year, but in the next few years, the logic pieces will be in place. And as long as you can sort out the duct tape of rights usage, and by the way, that's all going to catch up on guys like you and me,
Yeah.
that there's going to be a lot of duct taping in like 2027 when you have to like re-standardize rights, and you're going to like really loathe yourself of today because you will have done a bunch of stuff that seemed like a good idea today, and future
It's okay.
years
We'll
like,
be retired. The robots will be working for us. Don't worry, buddy. It's 2 years from now. Like, it's all good.
maybe.
Maybe. Uh, fun fact, if you use a Home Assistant to talk to your lights and all that stuff, you can actually call it Jarvis. So you really will feel like Tony Stark. Just one step closer to you being a Marvel action hero, Kevin.
My
If you ever wanna make the
home
leap.
agent is called Ziggy. It's called Ziggy.
It's I know one of the 3 choices you get for a wake word. It's not super exciting. Well, bud, guess what? We just talked about presentations, didn't even really get into the weeds of all the other Google Gemini stuff. I mean, you know what I like? If I just had the chance to catch up with you this last week, these are probably the things I would have like started talking about. And if I want to know, like if I'm curious, if you've been experimenting with it and I've been playing with other things, and there's like 1,000 other things we could probably talk about as well. And we'll just have to save another single one of them for next week. And we'll talk about that.
But that is, I mean, we are putting AI to work, right? That's the
Yeah.
point here is I mean, I think I probably have to do more presentations than most in just my role and what I'm doing. I talked to friends of mine who are in e-commerce, and they're like, oh, okay, when am I going to use that thing? I don't really know when you're going to use that thing, right? But if your job depends on media-rich communications, either inbound, like you're trying to learn from them, or outbound, as in you're communicating with your clients, this is a huge unlock.
Or even
Absolutely
like
huge.
biz dev, lead gen, RevOps. I mean,
And
huge unlocks there.
expect it. You're going to see it really quick. If people have stripped off the watermark, but if you were getting sort of average Kevin style decks previously, and now you're getting these beautiful, fully rendered PDF
Man, you
decks,
see that designer Kevin hired?
you're
Amazing.
gonna know. You're gonna know. But it's okay.
Kevin just
Like,
hired a badass designer. Where do you find that guy? All right, bud. Fun to talk to you as always. Until next week. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to send us a question to answer on the show, email me at elijah@spark6.com. That is SPARK, the number 6.com, or Kevin@ascendlabs.ai. To learn more about AI strategy and training for your business, visit Kevin's company, Ascend AI Labs, at ascendlabs.ai. And to learn more about design and development of custom AI solutions, visit my agency at spark6.com. You can also sign up for my free newsletter, AI Framework Friday, by visiting spark6.com/newsletter.